Yo, it's JP. I'm going to talk today about litigation and the sunk cost fallacy. This is not a discussion that focuses on one specific area of law, a specific practice area, or a specific type of case, but it's generally far more pertinent to commercial litigation, business litigation, non-compete and trade secret litigation. It's far more limited to, or not even limited, it's far more useful in that arena. It's not really something that applies as much to our plaintiff side discrimination practice. And one of the reasons why is because whenever people can get a free lawyer, right, free to them, okay, where they don't pay for it, we do all the work, we front all the costs. Whenever people get that arrangement, and particularly, where we get good results and we've pulled rabbits out of hats on many occasions, people tend to get dollar signs in their eyes and they tend to get a bit greedy with things. And so they don't really have to deal with sunk costs because they have no costs. They're kind of like, hey, my lawyer's doing all this stuff for free and I can just keep this thing going forever until I get bags and bags of money. I see that sometimes. I see that less than I used to see it because I've become far more discerning in the clients who I agree to represent in those types of cases. There are a lot of people I turn away who I think have a good case or a real case in the discrimination, retaliation, sexual harassment context, but I just think they're questionable people, right? Or people who I don't trust and don't really want to do business with. But this is not particularly applicable in that arena. It's much more applicable in situations where there's a dispute, there's a problem, there's an issue, and you've poured a tremendous amount of time and money into that dispute and usually into the litigation, right? I see this all the time in a variety of partnership breakups, trade secret cases where my client comes to me in the middle of a case, right? Like I often see this where we're brought in to provide a second opinion on existing litigation. This happens all the time in, like I said, partnership breakups, trade secret cases, business disputes, where the client who comes to the firm has been involved in a dispute for years, right? The litigation part of it, they might be in litigation for a year, might be 2 years. Sometimes there's multiple cases, like there's, one case that they filed and then there's a counter lawsuit, there's an arbitration proceeding, right? Like 6 ways from Sunday train wreck. And they come to us for a second opinion. And the result of that second opinion is, we evaluate everything, we size everything up. And at the end of the day, the conclusion we come to is, look, you need to resolve this and move on because the juice is not worth the squeeze. Here's the risk framework, here's the facts, here's the law, here's my analysis, here's where I think this is headed, and I don't think you have a reasonable chance of success in this dispute. And so a lot of people, I think, including some really bad mediators who we've dealt with recently, they say things like, well, Pollard's a fighter and he always wants to fight. Like, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's just your perception, like as a weak person who doesn't know what you're doing. I don't always insist on fighting. I know when to fight, but I also know when to get out of Dodge, right? Like, and that's the thing, okay? That's the thing about like law and litigation and what so many of these people don't understand. Like, I remember one time when I was in Baltimore City teaching high school and I went out to the neighborhood to look for one of my kids who hadn't come to school for several days. And these 3 guys, right, who obviously ran the fucking neighborhood, like they rolled up on me and one of them had a Mossberg literally in his waist, right, down his pants, had a fucking Mossberg, right? Like, know where you are. Self-preservation. understand the situation you are in and conduct yourself accordingly, right? Like, there is a reason why I have survived through the livest times, and that's because I know where the fuck I am at all times, and I act accordingly. And that's how I got out of that situation. And the same thing in law, right? Like, if I'm in a situation, in a case where the writing is on the wall and I believe my client has no realistic chance of success, no reasonable shot at success, like, it is a losing battle, and they never should have gotten into it to begin with. They either should have resolved it early, or they shouldn't have spent the time and spent the money and spent the emotional investment, right? I find myself so often telling people, like, look, right, you're involved in this fight. And this is not on the plaintiff side, discrimination, retaliation, sexual harassment, as I've already explained. This applies more so in other areas of law. But I see so many of these cases where folks have invested $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $1 million, just tremendous amounts of money and years and just so much emotional energy in pursuing a case, a dispute, a vendetta, a partnership issue, whatever it is. And in the American legal system, it's very easy to get representation, and even to get like reasonably capable representation for whatever you want to pursue. As long as you're willing to pay money, there will be lawyers who will go to court and pursue your case and assert whatever position you want to assert. Right? That's America. Okay? That's not me. That's not me. People come to me all the time with cases where they would pay me a truckload of money to represent them. And I turn them away because I don't want the case. I don't believe in the case. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. I think they're a fucking dick, and I don't care about the fact that they have $100 million. Like, but you know what? I'm for sale. I'm not for sale, right? I'm not for sale. I'm reminded of Unforgiven, right? The Sundance Kid, or whatever the hell his name is, the kid, where he says, I'd rather be ragged and blind than dead. It's not exactly that, but it tracks that same direction, right? Where it's like, I don't need all that shit. I'd rather be me, right? As small and as modest as I am in terms of what I've achieved in this profession and career in life, than take a bunch of fucking money to represent people I don't agree with in cases I don't believe in, But in America, you can find lawyers who will file anything in court and pursue anything in court. And so I think there's often a lack of real assessment of the merits of the case or the position or the strategy. It's more just to like, fuck, you want to do this? You're the client. You're willing to pay for it? Let's go, right? And the outcome be damned. I can't get down with that. I lose sleep over stuff like that, right? In terms of like, if I have cases where I'm like, damn it, I'm in this case and I'm going to fucking lose. Like, I don't abide that. I don't do that. It just doesn't, right? And yeah, we lose cases. Everybody loses cases, but the cases where if we go the distance and lose, like, I never thought we would lose, right? It's a case where I sized it up and I was like, I know that we might lose. I know that we're taking a shot here, but I believe in this and I feel good about the shot we're taking, right? But I see so many cases where people call me on the phone, pending litigation, existing litigation, a year or two in the process, tons of money down the drain. And I look at the case and I'm like, that's not a reasonable shot to be taking. Like, literally, you were getting hosed. You were going to lose. The writing is on the wall. And yet you continue to pony up, to pay the bill, to spend the money, to keep going. And there's this, like, psychologically, people have this idea of like, oh, well, I'm already this far. I hear it all the time. People literally state to me the sunk cost fallacy as their reason for pursuing certain litigation. They say to me, this happened 6 years ago. I've been fighting and haggling with these people ever since. I've spent $700,000 on lawyers and experts and this, that, and the other. I've dedicated all this time and money and energy, and I'll be damned if I walk away. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But that's not a valid reason to continue down that sort of path. You don't pursue litigation if there is not A, reasonable chance of success, or B, you recognize that in the particular case, in the particular scenario, the particular fact pattern, you recognize that the odds are 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000, and you're probably going to lose because the system is fucking cooked, and this is America, all right? And I stand by that statement. But you recognize that, and you say, I don't care. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to take our shot. And maybe the shot is 1 in 100. Maybe the shot's 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000. We understand. We know the writing is on the wall, but we're big boys or big girls, and we can live with those consequences, and we're going to shoot our shot. That's it. Those are the only two, right? The decision tree, binomial. That's it. You're either doing it where you're like, we're doing X. This is a reasonable strategy. This has a reasonable chance of success, and it justifies the investment. That's one. Or two, we know this is a Hail Mary, and we are okay with that. Because every once in a while, somebody hits a Hail Mary, and it's spectacular. Those are the only two possible frameworks to operate in. And if you're not in those two frameworks, and your rationale, your reasoning, your justification is, well, I'm already 4 years, 5 years, 6 years into this dispute. 1 or 2 of those years are in court, but it predates that. And all this bad blood and the wrangling and the fighting and everything else. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where what happened was wrong. What happened was unfair. You were taken advantage of. You were mistreated. You were slighted. The other side did something dirty. But it is not necessarily actionable. Or for whatever reason, you are not going to prevail in the American legal system. And again, right? Do not call it a justice system. Do not refer to the American legal system, the American court system, as a justice system. That is mythology. That is indoctrination. That is language doing work, okay? They call it a justice system in order to have that notion burrow itself into the minds of sheep, okay? So they look at the system and they say, well, it's a justice system. And that carries with it so much unearned credence and power and faith and trust in the institution, okay? Look, I abide the rules. I follow the rules. I am the last Boy Scout. But if you ask me, do I trust the institution? Do I believe that the American legal system is a fair one? Or do I believe it has anything to do with justice? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Leonard Peltier is still in jail, for God's sakes. All right? Absolutely not. This is America. Like, that's the irony of all this, right? Like, people 2024 walk around referring to it as a justice system, and it's like, don't you realize this is America, people? Read your history books. But so for whatever reason, you're in a case, you're in a dispute, you're pouring time and money into it. You have to understand that there are wrongs that are not redressable through the legal system. And you have to further understand that just because you've spent years and countless hours of obsessing over it and hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it is, and just because this has dominated your life since 2016 or 2018 or 2020, and you've been living with this and sleeping with it and waking up with it every morning, just because you've done that does not mean that further investment of that nature is going to be productive or get you anywhere. And in a lot of these cases, folks have gotten into cases that they never should have gotten into in the first place. Like folks have, like, they got a lawyer or they got a big law firm and they pursued some litigation and now they're up to their neck in it and it's a disaster. And it's like Brokeback Mountain and they wish they knew how to quit it, but they just can't. And they keep going back to Brokeback Mountain. And then I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is a losing battle. And the writing is clear here. Like, this is not even plausible or debatable. Like, you got to get out of Dodge and you're wasting your time and your money and everything else. I've got like 6 explanations for why this happens. One of them is people dabble. Lawyers dabble. Be very cautious and skeptical of dabblers, okay? Like if you have a specialized problem, and you go to somebody who dabbles and is like, yeah, I do that. I can do that. I'll do that. I can represent you. We can put that case together, or we can defend that case, or this, that, the other, because it works both ways, defense, plaintiff, etc. Anybody who's dabbling, where they're getting paid for it. I'm not talking about dabbling on a contingency fee. Different, right? I'm talking about people who are like, oh, you're going to pay X money for me to do this litigation? I can do this litigation. Do you do light bulb litigation? Are you going to pay somebody to do light bulb litigation? The fuck? Of course I do light bulb litigation. Yeah, I've done some light bulb cases. What are you going to pay? Oh, wow, $600 an hour, right? Yeah, we are light bulb litigation lawyers. We've done light bulb cases. We handle light bulb litigation cases. So probably 7 or 8 years ago, I had somebody reach out to me, a potential client, and they were rapidly growing. It's a finance company. And he was like, we need everything. Like everything, like regulatory stuff, banking stuff. Like, I got tons of money. Like, Pollard, I know you and I know who you are and I've read about you and looked you up, and like, can I just hire you and like, you can have millions of dollars and just like hire other people and figure this out and give us all the shit we need? And I was like, man, I really appreciate that you would even reach out to me on something like that. Like, and that you hold me in that high of a regard and respect the work I do, right? And trust me that much. I really appreciate that. Because it's a real sign of respect, right? But that's out of my wheelhouse. I don't know that arena, and I'm not going to dabble in it. Because dabbling in that, right? Like, I'm a fiduciary. For all the talk of me being like the worst person in the law, right? Public enemy number one. Oh, Jonathan Pollard, that dastardly lawyer, right? Who's not folksy and old-timey and collegial enough and, right, glad-handy enough for the system, right? My God, imagine somebody would have a problem with a state court judge referring to federal courts as those Yankee courts. Like, my God, who would ever, right? Imagine a lawyer saying something about that. Or, oh, imagine a lawyer having a problem with, a judge sending all of his court-ordered mediations to his campaign finance chair, right? As a kickback, like all the Star Chamber crap. Like, imagine anybody ever had a problem with that. Well, I do. I'm public enemy number one, right? But I turn stuff like that away all the time because it's dabbling. It's out of my wheelhouse. It's out of my lane. I'm not capable of. And the thing is, that's the irony, right? Like, I probably am capable. I could figure it out and do a better job than 97% of the people out there. But I look at stuff like that and it's so high stakes and so high dollar. And, people come to me on something like that and it shows like they respect me and they trust me. And so I have a fucking duty, okay? Morally, ethically, professionally, to say, I really appreciate that, but you would not be best served that way. And I don't believe that I have the appropriate expertise. You should find someone else, okay? But a lot of lawyers don't operate that way. They say, you know what? We've done light bulb cases. We do light bulb cases. We do light bulb cases. $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 later, right? How many light bulb cases have they done? 3 in 20 years? Oh yeah, we do light bulb cases. Can you bill for that? We do it, right? Can you bill for it? Whatever you can bill for, we will do. We will do. Landscape lawyers? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why you get this situation, because people can always find, people who have the money and the resources and the capital to pay for litigation can always find someone to pursue their litigation and pay someone to pursue their litigation. And then they pay all this money and they get into these train wrecks. And then a year or two later, they turn around and they say, what the hell is going on? And then they call me or whoever else they call and they get a second opinion. And then I tell them, like, look, sunk costs. And they say, no, but I spent all this money on sunk costs. That doesn't change the reality. So if you're in one of these situations, and I apologize, this is a long video and I go off on tangents and I tell you side stories about whatever, but this is how I roll. And if you don't like it, you don't have to watch the shit that I put out there, right? But this is going to help somebody. This is going to help somebody where you're going to be in one of these situations. You're going to sit there and you're going to think to yourself, man, do I really want to put more time and money into this? Do I really want to put more energy into this? And remember, it's not just the money. It's not just the money, it's the energy. It's the energy. All of us, we only have so much energy, so much attention, so much care, so much concern, so much focus, okay? That's finite. That's finite. If you take away nothing else from this video, take that away. Our abilities, our capacities, we are finite. And if you are pouring all of this energy and emotion into a case, in addition to all this time and money, you have to be clear about what a realistic return is. And man, this video is already so long, but I have to make this point, okay? I have to make this point because it's critical for some people to hear. Litigation does not get you justice. It does not get you justice. Litigation does not make everything better. Litigation does not fix all of the problems. Litigation does not right all of the wrongs. In the absolute best case scenario, in the case where you win and it's a great result, litigation gets you some money, okay? Litigation gets you some money. If it works out, if you win. It's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. It's not the remedy all the time. So if you're in a situation, you got a bunch of time and money and energy invested into it, stop and take a chance to reassess the landscape and ask yourself if the facts, the law, the realities, the ROI, if that really justifies the continued investment of finite resources. Because none of us are limitless. Take care of yourself.